Hi everyone, I'm Steph and welcome to the Steph Sewn channel. This is my first video on this channel and I'm so excited to be bringing you all into my world. I'll do a more in-depth introduction or something in another video soon, but the main thing to know about me is that I make all my clothes. And in fact, with rare exceptions, I haven't been shopping for clothes for the last 6 years. What I want this channel to do is really show my entire making process from the design stage, which is really plotting, buying loads of fabric and trolling through Pinterest, to some sewing tips and the finished garments and how they fit into my wardrobe, fit into my life. Along the way, I'll be able to explain how I went from my high school self, my high school sewing self, who was hacking up a bunch of emo band t-shirts and turning them into weird halter dresses, which immediately fell apart, and have now become someone who made her own vintage style trench coat using dead stock Burberry fabric. I'm hoping that I can make sewing and having a creative life more broadly feel more accessible to people. But even if you don't end up being interested in sewing, you can still hang out, look at some pretty fabrics with me. For this first video though, I want to keep things very simple and do some bragging. What we'll do is go through the things that I've made so far in 2023, kind of January, February. And actually the variety is pretty good considering that I was working a ton and also did a fair bit of travel between London, where I live, and the US, where my family is from and where I still have to go for work sometimes. We have some accessories, some blouses, actually some knitting that got done, and even a pair of jeans. Jeans always feel like a major sewing achievement because they take so long, so I'm very excited to show those in particular. And to be honest, this also means I get to make the internet look at my behind in jeans, so you're welcome in advance for that. So with that in mind, let's get started and let's start trying some stuff on. So first up is this long sleeve blouse, which is actually sewn from a vintage pattern, and not just any kind of vintage workwear pattern. This was actually originally a gym kit pattern, so kind of running and athleisure wear. As you can imagine, it didn't look like this before I hacked it. Of course, this is not something that you would go and do a mile run in your kind of 1970s high school. But all I did was really take the pattern from a short sleeve polo shirt, extended the sleeve, flared it out at the bottom, and had that flared sleeve gather into a cuff. So very, very simple to do, but totally changes the look of the blouse into one that I'm going to be much happier to wear at work. The fabric is a cotton rib from Joann Fabrics. I actually got this when I was home in the US over Christmas, or I should say, my mom got it for me as a Christmas gift. So if you're watching, thanks Mom. And cotton rib, perfect for a blouse like this. Not only is something like a medium weight cotton rib, it's really easy to sew, much easier than some of the slinkier jerseys. But when you're doing something where you want a bit of structure, like a big collar, like a gathered sleeve, that medium weight fabric is just going to show that structure off and kind of not just flop down the way that a viscose jersey would. The neck fabric I'll show you is viscose jersey. It was very, very straightforward to sew. Other than that change to the sleeve, I didn't make any other adjustments to the pattern. It's one I've used a lot for different types of tops. So, next time you see a pattern for athleisure, just think maybe it just needs a sleeve change in order to be something that you can wear at work. Next up is, of course, a very different style of top to the one I just showed you, something that's a bit more for going out. But this is the Alec rib top by Just Patterns. The pattern itself, I think, is written for a really stretchy rib knit, but I think that any thin, stretchy jersey would work as long as it has good recovery, because you don't want this slipping off your shoulder. The pattern itself, very easy and straightforward to put together, but the actual, interesting square neckline shape comes from the sleeve. So you have the traditional raglan sleeve in the back, but the front is almost more like a bustier or tube top, and it's the front edge of the sleeve that forms the square neckline. So that's not a construction I'd seen before. I really liked putting this one together. The pattern itself has a really good size range, especially for a designer who I think is a bit newer to the scene. And the top goes up to a 57.5-inch bust and a 50-inch waist. So again, quite good coverage there and something that we always love to see. For the fabric, this is, I love the colors in it. It's a viscose jersey, and it's actually from a remnant bin in Walthamstow Market. I will have to kind of take a camera along the next time I go, because there's amazing deals to be had there. They get a lot of one-off pieces of kind of factory dead stock. Basically a brand who's getting their clothing made in the UK will have a factory test their printing, and so there's just these like random 2 to 3 meter pieces of fabric that you can get for, I don't know, like 2 to 4 pounds. It's a great deal. So far it's been honestly too cold in the UK for me to wear this very much, but one that I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of wear out of this spring when I'm frolicking in the fields. Next up is my knitted item for this month. Knitting is something that I've known how to do for a long time, but the issue I've had is that I never finish anything except for like scarves, which you just kind of do it mindlessly. I've had a few attempts at sweaters or tops in the past, and due to really the yarn choice and the style choices that I've made, I just never end up wanting to finish them. The closest I came was a black and white striped, like thick striped sweater that I tried to knit in high school. I was actually pretty close to finishing it, and I thought that I was going to have this really cool like Avril Lavigne Hot Topic look, you know, I'm dating myself. But a friend said that it reminded them of the Hamburglar, and once I saw that I couldn't unsee it, and to be honest, they were right. So didn't end up finishing it. I think it's still in my mom's closet at home with like half a sleeve missing. But anyway, this is finished, and it is the Jessie May Ripple Crop Top in the worsted weight. There's also a version of the pattern which uses a much lighter weight yarn. I had wanted to pick something that I knew I could finish reasonably quickly, so it would be easy to commit to. It would also allow me to get a yarn that was a little bit more expensive, something that I'd be a bit more excited to use, just because you wouldn't need to use very much of it. So this is made in the Superwash Merino from La Bien Aimée, which is a Paris hand dye studio. I absolutely love this yarn. I think that the tonal variation in the pinks is so pretty. It's such a rich, saturated color. The pattern itself, I mean, even as someone who has not knitted in a very long time, came together super quickly. It was easy to follow. The only thing that I will point out, and this is not a fault of the pattern, it's just like how it's designed, is that it is short. Like the way it is written, it really comes out to be a really cropped top. And because you're knitting from the bottom up, it's not really one where you can easily try it on as you go. So I didn't have a good sense of how long it was meant to be. But I knit to the recommended dimensions, and it was like coming up right under my bra line. And I have a really short waist. Like my belly button is here, the base of my bra is here. I have no torso. It's like literally this long. And so if it was short on me, it will be short on many other people. And again, that's how it's designed, but just something to be aware of. There's lots of people in Ravelry who say the same thing. For me and just the weather where I live, a cropped merino sweater that's that short, it's just not really something that is very practical. So what I did was, this was after the garment was finished, but I basically undid the bottom row of the sweater, sort of just a bit back from the cast on edge, unraveled it very painstakingly, picked up all the stitches and knit down a few more inches till I ran out of yarn. It's not a perfect solution. You can kind of very faintly see the join, because when you do that, the stitches don't line up evenly. But to be honest, I don't think that anyone could tell that, and it was just more than worth it to just make sure that I ended up with something that I knew I was going to wear. But again, not a problem with the pattern, just something to be aware of. Also worth pointing out that Jessie May is an extremely inclusive designer. So her patterns have a fantastic size range, and they're also inclusive, what would be the word, like economically. So she has a sliding fee scale for her patterns, so you can just pay the normal price on Ravelry, but if that's kind of out of reach for someone, they can join her. I think you just have to join her newsletter to get the discount codes and get 25% off or 50% off, which can make the pattern itself super inexpensive. And I just love that she has an option like that for people in the knitting community. Her patterns also come with a wide range of yarn recommendations, so you can see everything from super, super premium yarns to yarns that are kind of acrylic blends, very inexpensive, and will still leave you with a really beautiful garment. So I love that she's put the effort in, and anytime that I can mention that about a designer, I think it's important to share. Next item before I show my jeans. and honestly to avoid repositioning the camera right away, is a bag. I haven't sewn too many accessories. To be honest, I use the same like kind of dingy Lululemon Everywhere belt bag most of the time. Again, in all the weddings and like work events I've had over the last year, I really realized that I was missing a bag that felt a bit special. I went to at least new to my Instagram feed designer, Taitka Studios, and made their very appropriately named flower-shaped bag out of this jacquard fabric. So it is a bit of an unusual design. It's definitely a lot of look, but what it is effectively is a circular bag, 3D circular bag with a bunch of these flower petals sewn in around it. I think it's just so unique. I've never seen a pattern for a bag like this one, and every time I see a designer who's starting to do something that, you know, isn't like a tote bag or a rollover backpack, not that there's anything wrong with that, I just think that we should celebrate it, give it a try. So the bag pattern is fantastic, but the only thing that I will mention again with this one is my fabric choice. So I had really wanted to use this purple and pink jacquard knit, which has quite a bit of gold running through it. It's really pretty and bright, but it is a fairly kind of medium heavyweight fabric, and the bag recommends a lighter weight fabric. Of course, when you have all of these petals, which are multiple layers and then pleated in the middle, the outer bag fabric, the zipper, the lining fabric, you're sewing through a lot of layers at a time, and with such a heavyweight fabric, this did get pretty difficult. The pattern itself is one that a beginner could do, but if you are a beginner or are just not willing to fight with your machine to get this made, just do yourself a favor and use a lighter weight fabric, but it was worth it to me. This has a zipper closure with some tabs to hold a purse chain. I don't really have a purse chain for this yet. Right now I'm just holding it with this. This is a necklace from a vintage store, or I think it's like a belt or something, and it doesn't really attach properly. I just have this on to show you. But definitely a designer whose patterns I am looking forward to using again, because she has so many interesting ones, everything from like more little party bags to things like gym bags, travel bags, etc. So huge variety. And again, really good instructions, super clear, easy to follow. So last but certainly not least here is the project that I spent, I think, the most time on so far this year, which are these jeans. These are the Megan Nielsen Dawn jeans, which are kind of an older pattern in the sewing community. They're super popular, I think, for very, very good reason. And they're basically a very high waist rigid jeans pattern. So this is non-stretch denim. The pattern itself comes in, I think, 4 different leg variations. You have shorts, you have tapered jeans, wide leg, and then just the straight jeans, which is the version that I made. I'm very much kind of a millennial who's recovering from the loss of skinny jeans being popular. So I wasn't really sure how I was going to feel about these, but I absolutely love them. I'm already getting quite a lot of wear out of them. Of course, making a pair of jeans is something that just naturally takes quite a bit of time. There's a lot of pieces to jeans. You have all of the different types of pockets being layered up. You have a fly, you have a waistband, belt loops. It's a type of sewing where you need to be patient and you need to just make sure that you're investing the time up front to kind of get the fit right, so you end up with something that you can wear for years and years. The other thing to consider with sewing jeans, and one of the reasons it takes such a long time, isn't really anything to do with the design itself being really complicated, but it's all the top stitching that goes into jeans. So like I think most other people, I have one primary sewing machine, and you're constantly switching back and forth between the thread you're using to actually construct the jeans and then the threads you're using to top stitch. And so that's one where kind of sometimes it feels like every step you're switching back and forth. But the end result will leave you a really professional looking pair of jeans that you'll be super happy with. In terms of the fit for me, I did kind of my standard adjustments. I always have to grade between waist and hips in trouser patterns. My waist to butt spans or hips and butt, spans about 4 sizes in most patterns. So it's just one where I know I'm going to have to make some adjustments to cater to that, especially in a pair of non-stretch jeans. So that's just adding more room to the hips, to the seat in the back, and then making sure that the waistband is curved so it sits flat against my back, and I don't have the kind of big gap that I always used to have when I wore store-bought jeans. In terms of the size range for the Dawn jeans, Megan Nielsen has two different size ranges. Usually I think it's like a straight size and a curve size range. But the top of the curve size range comes in at a 48-inch waist and a 58-inch hip. So again, should cover a good range of sizes, but there are some other jean patterns. If you're kind of falling outside that size range, just let me know and I'm happy to look into a few of them for you. In terms of the construction themselves, their jeans construction is pretty standard. I think that there tend to be some variations in patterns between whether you have a zip fly or a button fly. The Dawn jeans actually use a button fly, which I changed back to a zip because I don't like dealing with the buttons, they chip my nails. I did use standard jeans buttons for the waist button and also installed the rivets as well, which is a really fun and satisfying thing to do. You're like slamming them in there with a hammer. And it makes you feel very, very official with your jeans making. So overall, again, super happy with these, really glad I invested the time. One thing also to call out with jeans making is fabric choice. So there are many times in sewing when you can cut corners with fabric. And by cut corners, I mean like, get the cheapest fabric you can. There's a lot of great fabric to be had at very low prices if you're willing to go to a market and dig around a bunch of like remnant bins, which is what I like to do. Jeans is one where I probably I would recommend that a bit less, or I wouldn't recommend doing that just because they take so much time. For me, the sewing time for a pair of jeans is like 10 to 15 hours, depending on how many fittings I do. And you really want to make sure that the fabric's going to hold up, that the fabric's going to wash well, it's not going to shrink or do something strange, get really baggy. So in this case, I used the kind of organic rigid denim from Fabric Godmother, which super reasonably priced, but I know that these are going to hold up really well. And so far, I mean, I've washed them a few times and they're breaking in really nicely, but I'm not feeling like the fabric itself is starting to fade or get saggy. Well, with that, I'm gonna leave things here for today. Not only didn't make any more stuff or stuff that's interesting to see, but I can see that my camera battery is about to die. If you have stuck with me till the end, I feel like a like and a subscribe is only fair. And to be honest, you know, it's my first video. Throw your girl a bone. Also, let me know in the comments what you think. What pieces did you like the most? Have you made any of those patterns before? Just give me a sense. Tell me what's inspiring you these days. Next video will be covering my April sewing plans and knitting plans, and I have some very exciting projects on deck that you will not want to miss. So with that, I'll leave you to it. Go make some stuff.